On the evening of April 5th, 1994, John Prophet stopped by my home for one of our weekly visits. However, this visit almost never happened because, of all things, snow. Out of consideration for John, I called him earlier to ask if he didn't mind postponing our get-together for another night since it really was snowing pretty bad out, even though it was April. John insisted that he would be just fine in his four-wheel drive Jeep Cherokee. He appreciated my concern, but he had something he really wanted to show me, and I had a feeling I knew what it was. When John arrived, he dusted off his boots, and I took his hat and coat while handing him a cup of coffee. After we settled into my kitchen, he handed me a wrinkled brown paper bag. In it were John's 16mm railroad movies, his masterpieces, in a paper bag that looked like it once held his lunch. We sat at my kitchen table for 2 hours, talking about the films and what I could expect to see on some of the reels. We also talked about Jim Herron and how he used many of John's films for his railfan videos like Pennsylvania Glory and Reflections of the New York Central. He also told me about a guy who borrowed one of his film reels for a project and never gave the film back. And at that moment, I couldn't determine if John told me about this guy as a precautionary tale, but it made me realize how important John's archives were and how incredibly valuable his photos, movies, and sound recordings could be. There's nothing worse than a content producer who obtains archival materials on trust, and then he sees that as an opportunity to betray that trust once an unreasonable amount of time passes. I had borrowed a 16mm Bell & Howell projector from work in order to copy some films from another gentleman who, like John, was a dedicated rail fan, and I had mentioned this fact to John some weeks prior. While I didn't specifically ask John to see his films and make copies, I did ask him many questions about the films I had seen in Jim Herron's railfan videotapes. Lucky for me, John took the fact that I had a projector as a hint. When we moved our fellowship into the living room, I set up the projector while John selected which films he wanted to watch and in the order he wanted to see them. As the projector started moving, right away we ran into problems. The films contained numerous splices, and some were coming apart as they were being threaded through the projector. Even though the projector was being very gentle with the films, a damaged splice going by makes an awful racket. You have no choice but to assume that something destructive is happening to the film. So John was very nervous about this happening, but to be fair, he expected as much due to the film's age and the age of the splicing tape he used. However, he was confident I'd be able to splice the films together so we could spend the rest of the evening watching them while John explained to me everything we were seeing. There could be no better narrator. I'd like to point out that I was so excited to see these films that I often sounded like I was gushing, like a child meeting Santa Claus. To be honest, I was. Naturally, it was hard for me to get a word in edgewise due to John's enthusiasm over the subject matter in the films, but his photographic memory really shined as he described with incredible detail each second of film we were watching. It seemed like he shot the footage yesterday. One final note I'd like to make is this. I clearly remember John's visit on that snowy evening of April 5th, 1994. What I had no recollection of was the fact that I recorded our entire visit. Back in those days, I often used a hi-fi stereo VCR to make audio recordings. Even at the super slow speed, which gave me 6 hours of recording time, the audio quality was pretty good. Obviously, I placed a microphone somewhere in the living room and captured everything that was said between John and I. Sometimes I would ask questions that I already knew the answer to, or I'd make a statement that seemed like utter nonsense. But my main reason for doing this was to get John to open up and tell me everything about what we were seeing in his films. He didn't disappoint. I'll apologize in advance for my overenthusiasm, which really comes across at times. I stumbled on this VHS tape by accident because I was looking for another tape of something totally unrelated. It wasn't in a cardboard sleeve, and there was only a yellow post-it note on the tape that said, John Prophet talking about his 16mm movies, audio only. It's a good thing I made the recording in super long play mode. The tape only had a few minutes left on it before it ran completely out. That's how long John stayed that night. And in listening to our conversation back, the fellowship was wonderful. Just two friends enjoying some home movies of trains. After listening to the recording of my visit with John as he talked about them, I figured there would be no better narrator for John's films than John himself. There we go. Where's the framer?
That's back in 1936. That's an Ebenezer A4.
John did. Oh, there's Ebenezer Station.
Yeah,
oh, see, yeah.
Union Road was a grade crossing just beyond
right.
the station there. They hadn't built that bridge yet. That's the freight with an M1 going out, BNY 14. It used to follow 570. M1A, actually.
Did Herod include the scene in its entirety?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Look those through and check them over.
Yeah.
Of course, he added in some other stuff from other people, too, you know, some good shots. There's an H9. That's right in front of right passing the Ebenezer station.
So you're standing on the platform of the station?
Well, right about, maybe in the same, I don't know what it was just.
That light tower's still there.
Oh, yeah.
It sure is.
This is farther out, beyond Ebenezer. It's beyond the end of the yard, beyond the south end of the yard. These are out 1936 here. I think after this big cloud of black smoke comes a streamlined K4 that was on display in Buffalo for one day. Yeah. Yeah, there it is. I remember asking you about the K4 too. Yeah. Did they ever streamline them? There was only one with that style of streamlining, the first one, and there were 4 others done later with a different style.
Where was that on display?
At the central terminal on that track along, what used to be Lindbergh Drive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, track out next to the street. That's going to Elma. The Elma station is just out of sight over to the left. That's right on the grade, too, right? Blasting up. And this is the freight train that followed it every day. Working hard uphill. That's at Elma.
Is Elma Station still there?
I don't think so. I think
Didn't you say it was Jameson Road or something like that?
That was the next place beyond Elma, was Jameson Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a station there, too.
Ooh, look at this. Wow.
On the rear. Of course, it was a long train.
That had to be hard on the caboose.
They had to have strong steel underframes. 2 L1s. Usually there were, at least one of them would be I1, sometimes 2 I1s. That train is headed to Rochester, Doodlebug. But that's on the double track main line between the Olean and Hinsdale, where they ran for 7 miles and they turned off in Hinsdale.
Were these in Pennsylvania Glory? I don't remember these.
I don't think he used these scenes because they probably weren't of sufficient interest. There isn't even a view of the outside of the Doodlebug.
Oh, really?
But not the. That's part of the Rochester Bridge. This was in the early spring. In fact, this was March 31st. That's why it looks like wintertime. I mean, the trees are all.
Oh, barren, yeah.
This was the last year they ran a passenger train. Now, this is going through Letchworth Park, near where some of those pictures I took on that
really?
steam trip were. This is 1937.
So this is the Rochester branch?
Rochester branch, yeah. The river is over, the gorge is just out of sight over to the left.
Did you get a shot going underneath Portage?
I did. The next day coming back, you could just faintly see the bridge. I didn't try to aim. I had the camera sitting on top of a controller box. It's alongside the engineers.
I can't believe how stable it is.
That's why it's stable.
Yeah.
You can see the car rocking slightly. There's the
gorge.
You can't really see much. It's 500 feet deep, but that's all you could see without pointing the camera down. I kept the camera sitting on this box so that it wouldn't jiggle in my hands. And you see, it doesn't jiggle. You can just see a gentle rocking.
Yeah, just ever so slightly.
Just the car rocking slightly, but the camera was just like it was anchored to the car body, you know, because it was sitting on a flat steel box that was bolted to the wall of the car in the front, alongside the engine.
And of course, what, every 30 seconds you'd have to stop and re-crank it?
Yeah, well, I could re-crank it, yes. Yeah, but I could keep it sitting right where it is and just re-crank it real fast, you know, and then go on
really?
Shooting picture. Oh, I don't have to pick it up to re-crank it. See, I had it sitting on a solid steel support, so it was great. You didn't have to move the camera at all.
What would happen if you held it in place and tried cranking it as it was winding? Could you been able to do that? As it was winding down?
You could. Yeah, you could. If the camera was on a solid
if it was steady enough, sure.
You couldn't hold it by hand and do it.
Yeah, no.
Oh yeah, you could keep turning the winding crank out while the camera was running if you held down. In fact, you didn't even have to. If you wanted to take continuous movies, you could. If you pushed the lever down all the way down, it would lock in position. Then you had to push it back up to stop the camera. So you could push that down. There's the Portage Bridge. That's all you all you see.
Oh yeah.
This is going back south the next day, April 1st, 37. There's a little bit of the bridge.
Look at that. Oh,
see, there was snow down in here because it was shady right along here.
I can't believe Harry didn't want to use these. These are stunning.
See,
look at this.
Any of the upper falls are right under that bridge. This is back to Ebenezer again in 37. In the summer of 37.
That was great.
I wish I had more of that. And I wish
that
I had
was
it in
great.
color. But that train came off in July of that year, 37. And I made a whole round trip from Olean to Rochester, back to Olean the next day with an engineer, a friend of mine. Stayed overnight in the bunkhouse at the Rochester engine house.
Oh.
That's right in Buffalo, right near the Fillmore Avenue Bridge. The train is just coming off the New York.
That building looks like they're demolishing it. Are they demolishing that building?
I don't know. I haven't been down in that neighborhood in years.
These look so much sharper than the video print. They really do.
And that's out alongside the Ebenezer yard, out toward the south end of it. This is also in 37.
Oops.
The first color shot.
Refocus.
It's out near Ebenezer somewhere. That's the first shot in color that I ever took. That's in 37. The first year they had any good color film at all. The Kodachrome film was introduced in 36, but it was no good at all. It just faded out, turned pink, and then faded to nothing. But this is 37, and that hasn't changed a bit.
No, it hasn't. That's beautiful.
It's not the best. They improved it again in 39, but it isn't bad, though.
It's got a slight pink tinge to it, but that's something that can't be corrected.
Shooting, the trains are pretty good. If you're shooting just general scenes, the greens didn't show up as well. The greens were a little more bluish. And in 39, they really improved it. That's alongside the Ebenezer.
What is that, a crossing shanty, that little building in the center there?
I'm not sure. No, it's some kind of a tool house or something. A crossing shanty was beyond that. And here's the M1 coming out on the freight.
Is that BNY 14?
BNY 14, yeah. That was the number of the freight that used to leave Buffalo right after the passenger train, after 5:70. Well, within a half hour after, usually.
Are you holding the camera? Do you have mounted on a tripod?
No, I never used a tripod.
Now, was it your own personal choice not to shoot the entire train, or is it because the trains were so long
you couldn't shoot the train? The camera would only run for 25 seconds.
Sure.
There's no way you could shoot the whole train. I rarely could even, unless a passenger train was going at a pretty good speed, you couldn't get a whole passenger train. That's an Emporium on the turntable. That's in 1938. Back in the K4s look good. Is that working all right?
Yeah, it's just the splices going by, but I'd rather...
Yeah, there are a lot of splices in this.
I'd rather be here to grab it just in case, rather than have it go through. But no, it's going through just fine. These Bell & Howell projectors are pretty gentle, though.
Oh, that's a Bell & Howell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any modern projectors. I don't really know much about them or how they work. And mine is an old Kodak projector.
They're very gentle on the film.
I've had it for many years now.
I got that one from Channel 17.
That's in 38.
So you can see it's got a slight pink tinge to it. But it still looks great. Look at that.
Yeah. The engine was recently painted.
Now this is where?
This is Emporium.
Emporium, right.
Emporium. And that's BNY 14 coming, following the passenger train at about half hour behind.
I know I've asked you this a million times, but I can't remember. Is there anything to see in Emporium anymore?
I don't think there's much of anything now.
Yeah.
The engine house has been gone for years. I guess the station was torn down long ago. I don't think there are any tracks in the yard there. Probably 2 or 3 tracks, maybe. I don't know.
For all we know, it's probably condominiums now.
They don't operate any trains in and out of there, I guess, unless it's just a local, maybe. It goes all the end to Emporium and back. And here's the two pusher engines that uncoupled at Keating Summit and followed the train down. 2 I-1s. Back when they looked good. No messed up headlights and generators back in those days.
No.
The engineers all wore white caps on the Pennsy. Notice everyone, you see there, that.
They didn't wear the seersucker, huh? The white and blue stripe?
No, plain white.
Why is that?
I don't know. Engineers have sort of a trademark, the Pennsy engineers. Here's K4 number 43. That was running between Emporium and Erie then, at that time. Buffalo Harrisburg train had a connection to and from Erie. It terminated in Emporium. That's 571 coming in toward Buffalo. And there's some more black and white that I shot. This is from the new Union Road Bridge at Ebenezer.
Oh, they just put the bridge in, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, this was I think this was 37. These are not in exact order because I spliced this in later. I think it's 37 or whenever they completed that bridge. It was that same year. And I walked up on the bridge and...
What was the reason they put the Union Road Bridge in, besides the obvious? Because traffic was increasing
so heavy on Union Road.
Sure,
yes.
Sure.
Of course, they had to have a watchman there day and night to
right.
stop traffic. This is an arcade. This is 571 with an M-1 that day, headed toward Buffalo. We've been riding the arcade in Attica, so we...
Took a break and shot the Pennsy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
nice.
think this was the day we drove down there. We were shooting pictures. That wasn't the day we rode it. This is 570, another day coming into arcade at a different time. We obviously weren't riding the train because we were already in arcade. I think I was there. I don't know whether any other rail fans were with me or not, but we were at the station to see the train come through. And it just makes a very brief stop. Arcade was a flag stop.
So it only stopped if somebody signaled
somebody to get on or off.
Right.
It barely came to a stop and then it started up again right away.
Look at those Pullman cars.
Dining car. And then of course there are 2 Pullman cars. There's a parlor car for Washington and a parlor car for Philadelphia. They ran parlor cars to both places. Oil City, and there's the only known color moving picture of an E-3 Atlantic. It's my favorite engine of all types. I like them even better than the big E6s.
Why is that? Because
they're
they were
just
so
more
tiny?
more graceful and more beautiful lines than the fat boiler E6.
Yeah, look at that.
I've got a lot of black and white still pictures of that. But no, I didn't have a color slide camera.
Oh, look at that. That's an old timer, John.
Well, it was built in 1908. There were some of them older than that.
Was that engine preserved?
No, there's one something like it was preserved in Strasburg. It's an older engine. That one they numbered 7002. This is in Lockhaven, and that's 571 headed toward Buffalo. We were going to Altoona on this trip. This is 1940.
So you took these when you were on an excursion, right?
Yeah, well, this picture is on an excursion.
Right.
We had a group of about 27 or 28 people that went on a group rate, rode regular trains, went to Altoona, conducted a tour through the shops, and then we rode up to Crescent, ride around the Horseshoe Curve through Gallitzin tunnels and came back again. We had that inspection car one way. That's that car standing on the main track there right next to us, an open-end inspection car.
I remember these.
There's a DD1, side rod gearless electric on the Long Island. That's passing the New York World's Fair in 1939. They used them on train. There's the S1.
There's
the famous S1 working on a treadmill. Lettered American Railroad for the first 2 years, when it was at the fair. Because the other railroads contributed towards building this display. That's why they had that name.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Pennsy built and owned the engine, but all the other railroads in the U.S. contributed toward that. This is the biggest exhibit of its kind, something like that. And that engine was fired up, for the entire duration of the fair, both years.
Was it really?
Yeah. Yeah, they had a fire going. And this is back just south of Ebenezer. The freight train, BNY 14. This is in 1940.
With a pusher?
Yeah.
Would the guys that were in the caboose get a little nervous with this engine behind them?
I understand they did sometimes, especially when I was pushing on places where there were a lot of sharp curves. Oh, like pushing from Altoona to Gallitzin on the main line.
Sure.
I heard people say that some of the crews would be scared to stay in the cabin car. They would get out and go up and ride in one of the pusher engines and stand up in the cab.
Rather than ride in the
Sit up on one
caboose.
rather than ride in there, because they say the floor used to creak even though it was steel. No, those were steel, and they had concrete floors. They had a steel bottom, you know, and then they had concrete floor laid out like they did in the passenger cars.
And it would still creak.
And they would still creak, and the floors would get cracked, you know, from just a slight give and twisting action in the steel framework and steel body of the. And they'd creak and groan. I never rode in one with a pusher on it, but some it was scary. They wouldn't even stay in them.
Can't say I
Two
blame
of
them.
those I-1s pushing, but that's almost 200,000 pounds push on that.
No thanks.
Yeah. Now that's in Johnstown. That's on that famous.
That's where the flood
bridge.
was.
That's the bridge that was there in the 1889 Johnstown flood, and all the buildings and houses all piled up against that bridge and
Really?
caused them. And then it caught fire. You know, that was an I-1 on that. I'd forgotten it started out with that scene. This is in York, Pennsylvania. K4 on a train from Harrisburg to Baltimore. And that's in Baltimore.
Oh, that's nice. Look at that.
That was when they were running the diesels that laid over in Harrisburg all day from the night trains. They
Uh-huh.
used to make trips to Baltimore and back.
I'm surprised you
keep
took a
running.
movie of a diesel.
I just thought it was something unusual back then. They were rare then. I
Yeah,
had no
well,
movies.
that's true.
I got a few movies later on the Horseshoe Curve, and here's the doodlebugs that when they used to run the locals from Baltimore to Parkton, which was on the line to Harrisburg.
Look at those switch lights.
Commuter trains.
Oh.
This is right near the Baltimore station.
Now, were you there visiting the Kessels?
Yeah, this was back when Kessel lived there, yeah.
Yeah.
1947, 48, along in there. Now this is in Titusville. This is the train from Corey to Oil City. And they rode it to Titusville and got off there, a friend and I. Oh, it was a friend who used to work at Bayview Tower. We rode it because we'd made arrangement with the conductor on the New York Central to ride the New York Central caboose on their run from Titusville to Dunkirk.
Uh-huh.
So we had to lay over several hours. And this is in Englewood, Chicago, 1948.
Look at that diesel pulling out of the back. Look at that.
There's a K4 coming in towards Chicago from somewhere. I don't know whether that's from Columbus or from Pittsburgh.
All the
But
same
this is
color.
in 48. Yes, it is. They had some streamlined cars in. The New York Central is just over on the other side. There's a round end observation car. In one of these scenes, you'll see a New York Central diesel coming east. Now,
There's
see,
a
there's
diesel?
a New York Central.
Yeah.
There's a Pennsylvania
Is
diesel.
that Tuscan,
Back-
or that
No,
Brunswick
Brun-
green?
The rail fans call it Brunswick green.
It looks
They-
black to me.
It looks black to me. That's the same color they painted the steam engines. Those
Yep.
are, the Pennsylvania call it locomotive dark green. That's what they call it. But the rail fans call it Brunswick green. I don't know where they
But it looks black to me.
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, that's the Broadway Limited. You
Yeah.
see where there's
Oh, look at that.
see,
Yeah. Wow.
That's the two-tone paint job when they had the maroon window panel.
Yeah.
That
Was
was
that
a-
sign neon?
No.
Or was it just fluorescent
No.
paint? It looked like it was
No,
glowing.
that sign was colored on glass. They're behind glass.
Oh, boy.
Electric
Look
lights
at
behind
this.
it.
Wow.
There's a T1 coming in. That's on a train, I believe, from from Pittsburgh. Just some daytime train. This was in the afternoon. That one, I didn't bother to get the head end. It was diesels, and probably was something worth getting. I think it was Baldwin diesels.
Oh, John.
I hated the things back in those days.
Even though they were such a rarity, they were so
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
Well, you
Well,
got
I
one.
got
There's a
some. Here's one.
Baldwin.
There's a Baldwin sharp-nosed passenger diesel. I think that other one that I've just missed. It's seeing the. I think that was an Alco PA passenger diesel.
What's that?
Well, that's one of those Rock Island cars.
Yeah.
That was one of those through cars to from New York to Los Angeles.
Oh, look
There's
at this. The
see, there's a
Broadway
New
and
York
the
Central.
20th.
No, I think that was a Commodore Vanderbilt or something. The Broadway and the 20th century were not due at the same time like they had been at one time.
Oh,
years ago.
really? Okay.
They were due about a half hour apart, or 10 minutes or so. And I think that was a Commodore Vanderbilt. And this one, I don't know if this is a Broadway or not. I'll have to see. That other one wasn't, no. This is back east again. This is east of the Gallitzin tunnels. A place called Bennington Curve on the grade down toward Altoona, toward the Horseshoe Curve.
Everywhere west. That's
Trains look a little
CBQ.
different. And this is at Mapleton track pans on the Pennsy near Mount Union. One of those you saw in those scenes before. Only
Yeah.
This is one time I visited the spot and took movies. I wish I could have gotten a movie shot, but I couldn't run both cameras. There was a T1 on a passenger train came west, scooping water, and I got a good black and white still of that.
Oh,
but
boy.
there was nobody to run a movie camera. I would have liked to have a movie shot of it. This is in Tyrone, a train going up the Bald Eagle branch to
With a diesel, look at that.
Yeah, those are brand new diesels being delivered up to Clearfield or somewhere in the Clearfield branch. Yeah,
Why did they put a boxcar between them? Do you know?
I don't know what the reason was. No, I don't know. They had a steep grade going up north from Tyrone, but they used pushers on up that grade. It is going up through town. I'm down by at the main line by the station.
Looks just like a model, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Just like a model.
And that's on the main line of train going east. This station is over between the two passenger tracks, which are the middle tracks through there. And there's a train coming off the branch line onto the main line at Tyrone.
Coming off that Bald Eagle branch?
Off the Bald Eagle branch, yeah. They had quite a bit of traffic on that line. There's an M1 and a caboose on that. It was turning around on the Y. There's a Y. The station sat right in the middle of a Y there.
Yeah.
And this is up in that first place north of, on the Bald Eagle branch, north of Tyrone. The one of those freight set it up with an I-1. And this is there were some rail fans along. We were on an automobile trip chasing trains looking for steam back in the 1950s. And this one will have an I-1 pusher on the rear.
With its wheels slipping.
Yeah. Yeah, look at it.
Yeah, look at that. It's
Yeah, that
stalling.
was slipping when that big cloud of black smoke was roaring out of there. There, it's slipping again there, too. No
It's
sound.
obviously pushing too hard.
No sound. Now this is at the west end of the Rockville Bridge, around 1956, somewhere around there. The M1 coming out of Harrisburg instead of out of Enola. And there's a train, I think down here you'll see a train coming out of Enola too. You'll see it in one of these scenes here. Yeah, see there's one coming out of Enola and that other one's coming out of Harrisburg. And they go through that tunnel and come up inside the... Now that's over in New Jersey, in Spring Lake, New Jersey, on the New York and Long Branch. The train's between New York and Bayhead Junction. They ran the K4s from South Amboy to Bayhead Junction.
3 cars
Commuter
plus
trains.
luggage.
Yeah. Now here's the D-16, 1223 on the Strasburg. During some of the years when that was running. 1962, I guess it is, or 60-something. Well, whatever the last year was on the label on there. This is at the Strasburg station where they run the engine around the train to the other end of the train. Because like most of these tourist railroads, the engines run backwards in one direction because they don't have any place to turn.
Turn it, sure.
Have you ever been to Strasburg?
No, never.
Well, that's a great place. The museum is great too. That's wonderful.
A friend of mine had been there. I
That's
got
where
some.
99% of the Pennsy equipment and stuff is there. That museum covers all railroads in Pennsylvania, but it's 90% Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, sure.
Railroad. Yeah. Yeah, it was great to see one of these engines in operation again. These used to run every day through my hometown. I lived in Mount Morris. They were
Really?
in the Rochester branch, yeah. To see them all every day. Saw nothing of them. They were a dime a dozen back in the 1920s and into the early 30s. I had a cab ride in that engine on the Strasburg one time.
Really?
I arranged a cab ride, yeah, that was great.
Did you take any pictures, any movies?
I didn't take any movies from in the cab, no. I made sound recordings, though. I got a good sound recording from the baggage compartment of the first car one day. Excellent.
Oh, boy. It's still on wire, huh?
No, that was done on tape, on the first tape recorder, a reel-to-reel tape recorder. And I want to copy that over on a cassette.
Sure, I'll be able to do that for you. I can take it to work
several,
and do
I
it.
have several stuff. You see, for several years, I had, I guess it was before they invented cassette, I had a reel-to-reel tape recorder. And
An Ampex? An old Ampex?
No, it's an old Webcore.
Ah, yep.
The Webcore. Now that's looking out of the gondola car.
Oh, there's a
D-16.
CG1,
There's a
yeah.
DG1 going through double header on the freight, going through Lemon Place where they Strasburg. And there's the D-16 turning around. They use what used to be the eastbound freight track of the Pennsy main line to run around the train. The train was in on the siding.
This is on Heron's film. I remember this.
Yeah.
John, do you have those reel-to-reels handy? Do you know where they are?
I know where most of them are. Yeah.
Because I got a reel-to-reel recorder right here. We could do it right here in the living room.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, bring them by sometime. We'll make an evening out of it.
I would have to take my reel-to-reel recorder and to get something done with it.
I got one right there.
Yeah,
there's mine.
Great. I was going to ask you about that sometime.
Yeah,
I figured you'd have a
there it is. It's right there.
Yeah, well, that's
it's
great.
all. It's a Sony. It's been serviced and everything.
See, these D-16s are great. Yeah, see, there's a baggage compartment in that first car.
Yeah.
And it had a big, like a wooden counter in the one corner of the baggage compartment. I set the recorder on that, and I got some beautiful sounds. He made a real fast run, too. The guy that later was this superintendent of motive power on the Strasburg, used to be the engineer, ran the engine. Now, he really worked that D-16.
Does it still run in Strasburg?
No. No, they didn't renew their contract because it needed new flues and they didn't want to spend the money on an engine they didn't own. So it went back to the museum across the road.
And it's been there ever since.
Yeah, so it's not going to run again. That other engine they use, that Atlantic type, that 7002.
Right, yeah.
They were using that for a couple of years and something, I guess it's expired or something, I don't know what. Anyway, they returned that. So they don't use any Penske engines anymore now.
Did you put this leader here, or did Heron do that?
No, he did that. I just had short leaders that were...
That's great stuff.
White ones. He had to put those on, I guess, to do the copy work. But I just had the short leaders that came with on film when we come back from processing and stuff. It was just barely long enough to thread it through my projectors. Nice leaving at Broad Street Station in Philadelphia.
Okay, let me stop, because I wanted a cup of tea, and it just got done. Well, John, that reminds me. The Broad Street Station was Penske's.
Oh yes, only railroad that used it. Yeah.
And the 30th Street Station was the Central's.
Oh no, 100% Penske. There was no New York Central anywhere around Philadelphia. There wasn't any New York Central within 90 miles of Philadelphia. As close as it got was New York City.
Okay, so the 30th Street Station that Amtrak uses now, that was a Penske
station. That was 100%
station.
Penske.
That was a Penske
no
station.
No other railroads used it.
Okay.
Broad Street Station was 100% Penske. And what they call the Broad Street Suburban Station right next to the old Broad Street Station, that was 100% Penske, used only by MU trains. So the Penske had 3 big passenger stations all within a mile.
I saw the GG1 at the head of that engine. That was real nice.
Now, did you get the beginning of that? That's Overbrook. It's the first station west of Philadelphia.
Now,
see, this is in.
Were you on a vacation or on an excursion, or how were you able to do this?
Oh, we arranged it through the passenger agent in Buffalo. We arranged to have this observation car. It's an old former ex-Pullman observation power car, and the railroad bought 20 of them during the war to use for troop cars. They put wooden benches in them that seated 3-2 seating.
Right.
And they used them on troop trains. They still had the open observation platform.
So the NRHS made the arrangement to have this car put on, or you did?
No. Well, I did, and a friend who was also a member of the NRHS, he was a trip chairman at that time. He went along with me too, and we arranged it through the Penske's local passenger agents.
Oh wow!
In Buffalo, and they okayed it. We told them to take moving pictures of the scenery on the railroad, and they went along with 100% with the idea.
Oh, that's great!
They never even asked for a copy of the film, but
really,
of course, this is in the morning, shooting into the sun, and it's hazy, very hot, hazy day in July of 1946, and some of the scenes are not too good. There's where the freight cutoff from Trenton to Enola crosses the main line. You see a lot of pictures of that bridge. It's still there's a place called Whitford, if you've ever noticed that name on it.
Are you under electric power right now?
Oh yes.
You're probably being pulled by a GG1, right?
GG1, yeah.
Right.
And there's the main track coaling station at Thorndale, which is of course long gone.
Now, where were you going on this trip?
To Pittsburg.
Philadelphia to Pittsburg. Okay.
2 days later, we arranged to come back. There's water pans on the freight tracks only. They used to be on the 2 outside tracks, which are the passenger tracks, and they were removed after electrification. That's a place called Atglen.
Where did the GG1 cut off and you get onto steam power?
At Harrisburg.
I was going to say Harrisburg.
That's the end of the wires.
I was going to say Harrisburg, yeah.
It still is the end of the wires.
It still is, yeah.
They never electrified beyond that.
When we were in Harrisburg a couple years ago, I wish to God I could have checked out the museum that's there. But I didn't have any time.
And that's a place called Gap. You see pictures taken there sometimes. I watched these in quite a while. That's the station in Lancaster. One of the few stations west of Philadelphia that has high platforms. That one in Johnstown.
This might seem really strange, but did the Amish ride the train a lot?
I don't know.
Because there was such a large Amish population in Lancaster County.
I don't think, I never saw them very much. They used to ride the train some. I know years ago when there was a lot of people riding trains, I used to see them in there. You can tell by the way they're dressed.
Well, sure,
Not an awful lot, though. They didn't seem to do much traveling.
Yeah.
They stayed right in their area.
In their
the
set,
traveling
yeah.
they did with horse and buggy, and they never seemed to. They did ride trains, though, if they did travel anywhere that was too far to go by horse.
Right.
But not an awful lot, considering how many of them there were and still are around there.
Is that the dust you're talking about?
Yeah, well, it was a hazy day, too.
Mm-hmm.
But the dust is, when we get on west, where there was a lot of soot, west of Harrisburg, where the roadbed would get a lot dirtier.
What was the running time of this camera? Was it still about 25 seconds, 30 seconds?
About 25 seconds or so. I timed it one time, or at least once, see how long it would run. This is coming into Harrisburg.
Heron didn't use all of this, did he? I think he only used the stuff around Horseshoe Curve.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this wouldn't be worth.
Those signals are still around GJ. There's still one of those signals.
You mean those dwarf signals?
Those little dwarfs, right around.
Dwarf. Oh, yeah.
Yep, there's one.
This is leaving Harrisburg Station, which still has those train sheds there.
Does it really?
Yep. They left the train. In fact, they overhauled it and remodeled it, fixed it all up a few years ago and restored it. It had been neglected quite badly. And this is some 5 miles west of Harrisburg. It's coming onto the Rockville Bridge. The line to Buffalo goes off there to the left. This is the famous Rockville Bridge. You don't see much of the bridge from a train, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's crossing the bridge, and of course there are no more wires overhead. The wires
no, they're gone.
Harrisburg.
What's pulling you? A K4 probably, right?
K4, yeah. The two right-hand tracks here are the passenger tracks, and the two left ones are freight. That's why we're on appears to be a wrong track, but it isn't. It's the westbound passenger track.
Mm.
See, it's hazy off in the distance. The visibility was very poor. It was hot, hazy weather.
Hot, yeah.
See that white stuff over there that looks like fog? That isn't
that's
smoke, really. That's a haze.
Yeah.
There's just a little from the smoke from the engine, not too much. A little bit. See how sort of dusty it is?
Yeah. How fast were you going here?
Oh, no, here.
Oh, maybe 30, 40 miles an hour?
More than that, yeah. I think so. You see all the dust there, how dusty that is in there?
Yeah.
Most of that is not smoke from the engine. You see the smoke coming across the top of the train.
Overhead, sure.
Yeah.
Was that track pans?
Track pans on the 4 tracks. Yeah, I got pictures of all of them. Every ones that we passed over and all I got. Because I knew where they were. But I wish I'd gotten some other shots too, some more of the towers, the interlocking towers.
How many rolls of film did it take you to shoot this excursion here?
Now you shot 5, and that was because it was bad weather. I shot 4 rolls going west.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ran into some real bad weather between Johnstown and Pittsburg. I didn't shoot anything in that last
Didn't shoot
40
anything at
miles.
night?
We ran through a big thunderstorm. And it was
Oh,
dark
yeah.
and it rained.
Yeah. You never shot at night, did you?
No. Well, you couldn't, just kind of a scene at night. You wouldn't get anything.
Well, sure.
But you see all that haze down there? That's dust from the roadbed.
Oh, boy.
Look at it, see?
Oh, look at
That's
that.
dust. Just the dust of the train is kicking up.
Yeah, paper.
Yeah. That's all dust. See, it's sort of, this is a station stop, and there's a freight that overtakes us with an M1. And we overtake that again later after we get going. This was sort of somewhat of a localist train. It made quite a few stops, which was just what we wanted. And that was the only kind of train they would put this car on anyway.
Which was fine.
That's at Mifflin. We made quite a few stops.
But that I guess that's
now
what would
we're
make it so charming.
Coming to the famous Denholm coaling plant, which is the largest one in the world. You'll see that soon there. You can't see much of it. Look how dusty it is. That's got 2 tracks on top of it, the hopper cars, and the tracks go off on the other end. The empty cars go down.
Oh,
There's
look at that.
lines again. But look at now there's some smoke from the engine.
From the engine,
up
right.
above.
Chances are he's scooping water, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's the boiler house over to the left there. Used for heating the water in the winter.
John, do you think that the area do you think this area pretty much exists today in the same way? Are there still the same number of tracks?
Mostly 2 tracks now, 3 in some places, and there's hardly any 4 left.
But it's still, but the roadbed is still there, right?
Oh yeah, there's always at least 2 tracks on it, and there's a lot of heavy freight traffic. A lot of traffic on it. There's that freight that overtook us before. Look at it disappear in a cloud of dust there.
So the route to Philadelphia to Pittsburgh is still pretty busy.
Oh yeah, very busy. A lot of freight traffic on it.
Mostly Conrail.
That's jacks, narrows. Yeah, all Conrails.
More
I
track
deliberately got about every 40 miles. There was a lot of stuff I didn't get in between because it was so dusty that I didn't even waste film trying to shoot pictures of the scenery. It was so dusty.
I can't believe how stable it is.
Well,
that's beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah, well, you see, this was the only time I ever used a tripod. You couldn't handhold it.
No.
There's a Spruce Creek tunnel, or 2 tunnels side by side. There's the other one over in there.
Were you the principal operator, or did anybody else operate the camera just to give you a break?
No one else had ever touched a movie camera. I was on that trip. There were several other rail fans went along, including old Russ Shapley, who organized the regional rail fan group in Buffalo. He was on it for one way, or westbound. This is a place where there was never more than 3 tracks there, from Spruce Creek to...
Look at those beautiful towers.
To Tyrone. Yeah, and this is Tyrone. Everything is gone, the station is gone, and 2 tracks through there instead of 4. And there's 2 more of those track pans around the passenger tracks only, because it's close to Altoona, and the freight trains didn't need water. They changed engines, went in the yard and changed engines. So just the 2 middle track, there's a westbound freight on that left-hand track, and the other track to the right is an eastbound freight. And this is coming into Altoona. We stayed overnight in Altoona, and the next day we went up around the Horseshoe Curve.
So you got off the train here?
Yeah, well, they took our...
They took your car?
Well, not here, no. I was thinking of the other thing. We stayed overnight in Altoona with that inspection car, 1940. No, this one we went on through to Pittsburg. Stayed in Pittsburgh.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, the other one where they had that open-end inspection car out of Buffalo, that one we stayed overnight in Altoona. They took it off. This is... See, there's an M-1, a 210-2, just making its test run coming out of the shops. They'd always make a test run up to Gallitzin just to see if everything was working all right. See how hazy it is? It's one of the 3 reservoirs there in the middle of the Horseshoe Curve.
Now, are you approaching the curve now?
Yes. That's the curve there. We're just coming off of it. In close-up views, this doesn't look too bad, but off in the distance it was so hazy you couldn't see much of anything. Yeah, this is the
Horseshoe
curve
back there?
Over in there. I turned the camera up, you can see that
there it is.
Stone horseshoe right in the middle. Of course, there was no engine up there on display.
Yeah, on display,
This was in 1946, and there was no engine until 52.
Of course, there's a monument there now, and the park.
And a little switcher.
Oh, look at those towers. They're so beautiful.
There never used to be a tower there. That was new during the war in the 1940s. Now it's closed. Yeah.
Is it still there?
It's still there, but it's closed. It's a remote control now from the dispatcher's office.
Do you think the majority of these towers are still there on this line?
Well, I don't know how many of the towers are still in. That one is, that was a new brick and stone and concrete tower, but they've made them mostly, it's all CTC system.
Yeah, right.
Controlled by dispatchers. There's hardly any towers left, I understand.
This area seems pretty inaccessible to the rail fan who wanted to get to the tracks to photograph stuff. Is that true?
If you know where certain dirt roads are, you can get to some places, but you have to know how to do it.
Look at that.
This is all 3 tracks up there,
Blasted through tons and tons of rock.
Oh, that's some scenic ride. And this is approaching the Gallitzin tunnel. So eastbound tracks are up high on that embankment, and these are the 2 westbound tracks below. That track coming in from the right there is an abandoned branch now down to Hollidaysburg, New Portage Branch it was called.
Here's the Gallitzin tunnel.
One of the 2 westbound tunnels. Yes, and this is the west end of them coming out of the 2 single-track tunnels side by side. Those are the 2 westbound tracks.
That's still in use, right?
Yep. And then the eastbound tunnel is still in use. There's an eastbound freight up on that higher level. The eastbound tunnel is about 30 feet higher than the westbound. That's at Crescent. That's the next station west of the tunnels. The next station where anything stops.
This is all strictly freight now, right? No passengers run over this line
Yeah,
anymore?
there's 4 passenger trains a day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Broadway Limited runs both ways, and the Pennsylvanian runs both ways.
Over these same tracks?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. From Philadelphia to Pittsburg. Same.
That
route.
might be a future summer
It's worth
excursion.
riding. If you want to see the scenery as best you can see it out the side of a coach. There's no way to look out the rear end, I guess, but the scenery is still there, even though it's down to 2 and 3 tracks.
Yeah, I wonder.
There's a J1. We overtake that. Overtakes us later when we make a station stop. See how dusty and smoky
Yeah,
it is?
oh, yeah,
Visibility was terrible. This is approaching. Here it comes. This is South Fork, the name of this place where we stopped. Yeah, this was a local that made quite a few stops. Train that came off years ago, but made a lot of stops, which made an interesting ride.
How long was the ride from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia?
Let's see, it's 344 miles, Pittsburgh to Philadelphia.
So what's that give you, about 6 hours?
Yeah, I forget. Well, this train, of course, made a lot of stops.
Well,
Longer
sure,
than that.
sure.
I forgot now what time from about. I don't know. It was 8 hours or 9 hours.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Of course, if you wanted to do that now, you'd have to go to Penn Station and double back.
Yeah, you could.
You couldn't take an Amtrak to Pittsburgh and then.
No, yeah, sure. You can ride this in daylight.
But I'm saying you have to go from Buffalo to Penn Station to go to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't ride it down to.
That's so stupid.
Those overhead water bridges. The Pennsy was the only railroad that ever used those. The Pennsy invented them. See, they have water plugs. And you can take water from any. I don't know why they bothered with them having right over track pans, but I guess in case there was some engine that needed water, that switcher or something that didn't have a water scoop.
Oops.
That was Latrobe, that station.
That was really nice. Now, is there more to this?
But this other film, if you want to
Yeah.
see this one, is going back 2 days later, back east again, and there's some interesting shots.
Now wait a second. You went
foggy.
from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh and then Pittsburgh back to Philadelphia?
Philadelphia back to Pittsburgh back to Philadelphia, yes.
Why? So that you could take the train from Philadelphia back to Buffalo?
Well, I wanted to go back to Philadelphia again, and I wanted to get movies. You get an entirely different view when you look east.
Oh, sure.
Looking west. But the weather was so bad, I got just 4 minutes of film for the entire, an 8-hour trip or whatever it was. I got 4 minutes out of the 8 hours. The weather was so bad. It was so foggy. You'll see in some of the scenes.
Yeah.
This little film.
Okay, where were we?
84. Now this is headed back east again. But it was so bad around Pittsburgh, I didn't get any scenes that I wanted to get around there. Just east of Pittsburgh, it was just
the weather
foggy,
was bad.
Just foggy. You couldn't see anything. And it started to clear up just a little bit here, but you can see how bad the visibility is.
Is that?
No, that's.
That wasn't the Gallitzin tunnel.
No, that was Radaball Tunnel, I think it was. Yeah, I don't know. Forgotten now what one that was.
Wow,
Yeah, I guess
look
it
at
was. Because this is going down toward the Horseshoe Curve. Yeah, that was.
Look at how foggy. Wow.
Look at that fog. See why I couldn't get much of anything? You can hardly see the engines on the adjoining track. Now that's going up. This is just west of the Horseshoe Curve.
You know, if you didn't tell somebody that it was foggy, they'd swear you overexposed the film.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the way it actually looked.
It just sure does.
That's the way it actually looked when you were there, looking back. Yeah, that's just coming off the Horseshoe Curve. There's that first signal bridge that's east of the curve. You couldn't even see the middle of the curve. And then they used to have water standpipes there. I don't know why they didn't have a water bridge.
Look at that.
Yeah, isn't that great? This is coming down between the curve and Altoona. That's how it looked, all the way. 4 minutes of pictures in about an 8-hour ride. Terrible.
What a shame.
This is getting closer to Harrisburg now. We're approaching that Rockville Bridge. There was nothing I could get in between there at all, nothing. It started to get a little bit better visibility as we got near Harrisburg.
That would be like infuriating. You spent a whole year waiting for a trip.
Yeah. Now this is coming onto the bridge right here. The track that turned off to the left goes into Enola. Now there's a little smoke from the engine that's sitting there, but the rest of it is just haze. Although the fog is cleared a little bit.
Was it fog and rain or just fog?
No, it didn't rain at all. Just fog. See, this is coming off
that's nice.
The curved end of the bridge. You could just see a little bit of the bridge off the rear of an eastbound train. You swing around a curve there. You see the track going up to Williamsport and Buffalo. It goes off. Yeah, well, it goes off.
Oh,
right
yeah, there it is.
Tower.
Yeah,
that's Rockville Tower. It's still kind of foggy through here. The visibility is very poor. I didn't even get anything in Harrisburg. We're under the wire there now. This is on that double where the two passenger tracks are separate from the freight tracks between Royalton and Lancaster. It wasn't too bad right in here. Off in the distance it's hazy.
back in electrical power.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a GG1. Yeah. Oop. That's it.
That's the end, yeah. That's all I got on the eastbound trip.
That's too bad.
We retired to
Oh, this is the one where you're pacing, right?
Yeah.
You know, tell me the
So
story
this
behind this
doesn't have-
again.
this
How did this work out? How did you manage to do this?
A friend of mine has been suggesting it for a long time. He's dead now, but he was a real railroad fan, 6007. And he loved 484s.
That's
These
a
are
Mohawk, right? Or Niagara?
Niagara, they
Right.
called them, the Central called them. And he's been trying to get me to do this. And he's driving his car, and I'm sitting in the back seat of his car, running the camera, out along Broadway. This is not very good, but it's the only place anywhere around Buffalo where there's a road alongside the railroad.
Right along Broadway,
You got
sure.
all those trees along there, and traffic going the other direction. That's the Empire State Express going out 1:30 p.m.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 47, I think it is. It was still using steam eastbound and diesel westbound. Just happened to work out that way, the schedule on the diesels.
Harrow was so clever that he synchronized the sound and put horns honking.
Yeah, they used horns most of the time. Those engines had whistles, but they generally used horns. You know, I have I think it's two different recordings at Bayview. The one coming west at Bayview using the whistle, which is a real prize to have.
Yeah, I'd love to hear
That's
it.
as far as you could follow it. It's where Broadway turns away from the railroad. So we went up onto Ellicott Road or something off of Broadway and stopped. These scenes are at Wendy. That first one isn't very good. The camera is too high for some reason.
You're not on a tripod, are you?
No, I never used a tripod except on an observation car trip.
Track pans.
It's refilling after it.
So what would it
Train
do?
water.
The train would go by, scoop the water, and a pump would go on to refill it? Or would it
Well, I
be
don't
refilling
know.
it all the time?
Refilling by gravity out of a tank, I guess. I don't know. No, it'd be. It couldn't refill all the time. It would be overflowing in a few minutes.
Well,
We'd have
yeah, it's
thousands of gallons of water going to waste. See, that was a freight train on a passenger track. For some reason, east of Buffalo, or between Buffalo and Albany, the Central didn't have track pans on freight tracks except at the one place, Rome.
This is where I thought you got
Look
soaked.
at that one overflow. Oh, I was standing quite a distance away. I wasn't anywhere near. I'll show you the one where there were just a few drops on my pant leg, on the lower end of my pant leg. And I was standing on the other side of the track, next to the.
I still don't think I
tank.
found this area.
Lots of times you get rainbows from that spray. I have some scenes that show a rainbow on the other side.
So how would the engineer know to drop the scoop, and how would he know when it was time to raise the scoop?
They had marker lamps along the markers along the lights at the beginning and at the end.
Right.
And
So
the
when he
engineer would
passed
tell
the-
the fireman worked the valve. The valve was at the front end of the tender, and the fireman would stand there with his hand on the valve handle, and the engineer, on the central, the engineer would yell down, and that meant to lower the scoop, and they'd yell up to raise it. On the pen seat, the engineer would give one blast on the whistle.
Why couldn't he just say down?
I don't know. Pennsylvania always did things differently from the New York Central.
Yeah.
There's an E6 Atlantic overflowing. This is at Plainsboro, New Jersey, under the wires, electrified, on the Philadelphia, New York main line. There's a place where they kept track pans in because they
Jeez.
ran a lot of freight with steam. This is a 1946. 46.
Did you like the GG1s, John?
Well, yes, for electrics, I liked them. I certainly like them better than some of the later stuff they had.
They were unusual, weren't they?
They were a famous engine, and there was nothing that looked like them on any other railroad. See that glittering gold leaf? Those
yeah.
stripes, that wasn't paint. Yellow paint, that was gold leaf.
It was gold leaf?
Genuine gold leaf made out of real 100% gold. Yeah.
What was the reason?
There's an L one. I watched that one will overflow. See, they were running quite a bit of steam and freight, and even in '46 after the war. During the war, they really used a lot of steam. They didn't have enough electrics. See, look at that. That's overflowing.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Here they had track pans in on all 4 tracks, even though it was electric. There's another E6 Atlantic, which has already quit scooping. See, it only come 5 miles, well not 5, what is it, 15 miles out of Trenton. So they didn't need much water, and only 15 miles, they hadn't used much.
What was the length of the track pans?
They varied from around 1,200 feet, and they had some that were 2,600 feet long. Mostly around 1,400 in most places. That's the Trailblazer, that reserve seat coach train from New York to Chicago that they used to run.
Did you ever hear stories of firemen?
See that glittering gold on the front of that? That's genuine gold leaf.
What'd they do with the gold when they scrapped the engines? Take it off?
Yeah, it's too thin to save it.
Yeah, really.
It went for scrap.
Did you ever hear of a case where the firemen didn't lift the scoop in time?
Yes, I've heard of cases like that. It would tear out the end of even though there was a ramp inside the pan, sometimes it would still damage it or damage the water scoop. You know, there were times when they didn't raise it in time, or maybe it was stuck or something and didn't lift. That's east of Latrobe, east of Pittsburg on the Pennsy main line.
They probably tear up the roadbed too.
It could. There are times when the scoop dropped, I guess when it shouldn't, and approaching a grade crossing, and I've heard of cases on the New York Central, like crossing plants were wedged right up, went right part way up the pipe, in the scoop pipe, up into the tank.
Can you imagine what that must sound like or feel like?
You could even feel it in the first few cars on the train on the Central at 80 miles an hour when that water scoop would hit the water. You could just feel a slight bucking lurch. Yeah, imagine, you could still feel it at 80 miles an hour if you were in the first few cars on the train, you could feel it. You think it would tear that?
I wonder what it sounded like inside the compartment.
There's an I-1. That one will overflow. See that lamp right there?
Yeah.
That's where they have to raise the scoop there. He waited till he got to the lamp. Then, of course, there's several more feet. I don't know how much, 100 feet or so of track pan left, so there's plenty of advance warning. That's in New Jersey. That one's not scooping water, that K4. That's on the Long Branch, New Jersey.
Was that a Pennsy invention, water scooping?
It was invented in England, actually.
Oh, really?
Pennsy was about the first railroad that used it over here. The New York Central started about a year or so later. That's a Jersey Central Pacific.
There's the logo, yeah.
Too. Jersey Central, this was in 47, I guess it was. 46.
Was there any provision in the track pan like that, to recollect the water that was...
No, they just drained it away. It would be too dirty to use it. Anyway, it would be run down through the ballast and the cinders. Now there's that one refilling. Every so many feet they refill maybe 2 or 3 places in the length of the...
How deep was the pan?
Well, they varied. There some railroads, they were 6 inches deep, and some of the New York Centrals were 8 inches, and some of the later ones that the Pennsy installed were 8 inches deep, but usually they were about 6. This is at Broadway, New Jersey, on the Pennsy main line. There's a 6-track main line. The 2 middle tracks have track pans on them, but no steam came through there when I was there for a while that afternoon. But there's an old P5 box cab electric. And this is on the Jersey Central main line, west of Jersey City, near Dunellen, New Jersey. That was used by the B&O and Reading engines and the Jersey Central.
This is a B&O.
There's a B&O, one of those P7 Pacifics. That's on the Capital Limited connection. It was steam back then from Jersey City to Washington, and then it was diesel from Washington to Chicago. And this is a Jersey Central Pacific scooping water.
Was a tender specially made to scoop water, or did they all?
No, well, they didn't all have water scoops. They had to have a water scoop installed.
They had to have it installed, yeah.
An internal pipe, as they called it. It was a rectangular shaped pipe that went up.
So just the sheer pressure of the force, the speed, is
what
forced the water up, right?
I guess any speed above 25 or 30 miles an hour would be enough to
would force the water up into the tank.
Yes. At higher speeds, it would go up into a terrific pressure. That's on the Reading, but that's a B&O where they ran over the Reading from bound Brook, New Jersey to Philadelphia on their own lines, and that's Reading. On a Reading electrified line. It's electrified from Philadelphia to West Trenton. 4 tracks. And they had track pans on 2 middle tracks, which were the passenger tracks. And that's a Reading 282 on a troop train. They didn't scoop water because they didn't have water scoops on any of their freight engines, only their passenger engines. That's the only place on the whole Reading that had track pans, although they used them at, this is Wendy, again on the New York Central, a day that clouded up. It was a nice clear day when I left home and it got dark and cloudy. And
were you still on Meadow Road at the time?
yes. Well, it was lived there until 1969.
Oh, look at this. Who's waving?
No, that's the westbound Empire State Express, which was used diesels. Eastbound used steam, and westbound they used diesels. That's the westbound. Headed toward Buffalo. So you got all cloudy. And some of these are a little overexposed. I opened the camera up too wide. And there's one of the Niagara, the 484. The best scenes I got are the third time I was there.
Yeah.
After good sunlight on. This is kind of poor. They're eastbound train.
What if the boiler house is still there? I know you and I have talked about that before.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never noticed whether it's still there. Now, this is on the Pensy at Bellwood, east of Altoona.
He's overflowing.
He happens to be on the. That's the place where I said they had him on only the 2 passenger tracks. And here's a K4 scooping water headed east. These I didn't splice in with the PRR stuff. I left them in here for some reason.
Well, because it's all together.
There, now this one here, I think it's that one, I got a few drops on my pant leg.
That's one of these. Wendy.
That's at Wendy, yeah.
So
this is the third time that I was there. The sun was shining that day. That's one of these trains westbound. I think it was that previous one where there were a few drops of water.
The only time you got
I couldn't get any farther away. That drops down into some deep weeds, and then there's a ditch with water in it, and I couldn't get any farther away. It's a good thing there wasn't anything going east on this first track. I really would have got soaked. There was no place to get out of the way. So it was perfect for these westbounds because I was just out of the way of the water. The westbound trains on that second track.
There it is. Pumping it in.
It refills from both sides on there. Some places they come in directly from the bottoms. This I shot this because it was one of the freshly painted or new freight diesel.
Wow, that's ugly.
And then a whole string of brand new hopper cars back when they used to paint them red. Here's one on that first track. I think that's the one. That was the one where I got a few drops of water. That's the one.
Listen, the camera got blasted for a minute there.
It didn't though. I don't see any water on the lens.
Yeah.
But I swung it around so as to. I couldn't get any farther away. It was down in those weeds. It was all wet and muddy down in there.
John, do you still have the camera?
Yeah.
I'd like to see it someday. I'd like to see the camera.
This is the one. Let's see. Yeah, this is the one. It was in '46. I traded in my camera for a magazine camera. There's a 484. See, there's a few drops. I probably seen a rainbow.
Yeah.
I probably got a few drops on me there too because I couldn't get any farther away.
Another diesel, boo.
This is probably the Empire again. I wouldn't have bothered with it. Yeah, it's the westbound Empire again. I'd forgotten to have 2, but there's 2 different days that I shot that. Just to show that train, I guess, a famous train.
Good thing you did.
Yeah. And it's just looking into the west with this sunlight reflecting on the water.
John, did you usually go on these photo shoots by yourself?
Usually, yes. Yeah, except the time we followed the train along. His friend was driving his car, and he always wanted to try to get him movie shots going along there Broadway, so we finally did it one day. But usually I was alone. I was on one of those, I forget which time that was, that my sister went along with me, one of those 3 times at Wendy. He only went one time. I was alone the other 2 times.
In this last segment of our visit, John wanted me to see the collection of films he had made at Horseshoe Curve, located about 5 miles west of Altoona, Pennsylvania. When the Pensy built the line through this area in 1854, The curve was considered an engineering masterpiece, since it allowed the Pennsy to reduce the westbound grade to the summit of the Allegheny Mountains. John spent so much time taking pictures, shooting movies, and making sound recordings at Horseshoe Curve that it almost seemed like he lived there. Back in John's day, many rail fans referred to Horseshoe Curve as Prophet's Park. The conversation between John and I begins with the two of us talking about the Horseshoe Curve film we were watching and how it was a copy of the original, which John had lent to Don Ball Jr. sometime in the mid-1980s. Don Ball Jr. was a railroad photographer and author, and up until his death in 1986, he was considered one of the foremost authors of railroad-related coffee table books, meaning a book made up primarily of full-size pictures with captions. Ball was working on a book entitled The Pennsylvania Railroad, 1940s to 1950s, and since John was still considered the authority on the Pennsylvania Railroad even in the 1980s, with possibly the largest collections of photographs and films, Ball reached out to John to see if he would be willing to contribute some visual materials to what would be his newest book. John lent several slides and his original print of his Horseshoe Curve film to Ball. Now, while it was relatively simple to make a copy of a slide for reprinting in a book, Ball wanted to make stills from individual frames of John's video, something John didn't think was going to work, and when he saw the outcome, he was less than pleased. It's at this point that our conversation turned a bit dark. You'll hear John change his mood a bit when he discusses what happened with Don Ball and the disgust at the fact the copy of his Horseshoe Curve film had faded red and was getting very soft. You'll hear John say that lending his original film to Ball was a mistake. When Don Ball Jr. died in 1986, John eventually had his slides returned to him, but the 16mm movie of Horseshoe Curve disappeared. Judging by how badly the copy was deteriorating, you can tell that John was very, very disappointed. Now, I'm not including this part of our conversation to discredit or cause any shame to Don Ball's legacy. I'm including it to bring to light a part of John's character that emerged later in his life. He had been approached so many times by people who wanted to have access to pieces of his incredible archives. I'm sure there were many times that borrowed materials were never returned to him. John was too shy and well-mannered to chase people down to demand they return his stuff. So the more he was asked to contribute to projects, the more he began to keep his door closed and his phone off the hook, metaphorically speaking.
This is a copy, right?
Yes. That was a copy.
So you had this copy before you gave it to Don Ball?
No, Don Ball never had this copy. He had the original, which was a big mistake. No, it was copied before that. I had the copy before and should have given him the copy.
You have no idea who has his stuff, huh?
No. The person who supposedly had his stuff doesn't know anything about the movie film. He returned the slides. Don borrowed some slides of mine, which he used. It turned out great in his book, and those got returned.
Mm-hmm.
At least they're salvageable. They were all removed from the slide pane. Took them out of the slide, out of the cardboard mounts.
Which book were they in? I've got one of his
Pennsy,
books.
The Pennsy book.
Oh.
Forget the name.
I've got his book, America's Colorful Railroads.
Oh yeah, no, that's various railroads. This one is
Yeah.
100% Pennsy. This book that he put out. I think it was the last book before. The last book before he died. He never. As I heard after when he died, the book was being printed then, and he never saw a completed book. Died before it was finished, before it came from the publisher. So that was his last book. It's amazing how clear some of those slides showed up. And big pictures, the full width of the page. It's amazing how sharp they were just from those photochrome slides, 35mm slides. But it didn't work copying from movie film. It was just sort of fuzzy pictures and no sharp detail at all.
This is fuzzy?
Yeah, in Don Ball's book. Terribly fuzzy.
Oh, and he copied from the.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why. On a 35mm slide, it turns out beautiful. And a movie. You know, a lot of it.
Oh, because he probably had to still it.
Somebody told me later that you, and even though it looks sharp when you show the film on the screen, he said the actual frames of the movie film, even though you pick one that looks extremely sharp, when you blow it up at any size at all, you lose its sharpness, and you don't realize it when you're viewing it in motion on a screen.
Yeah.
That it can't be done successfully. Well, that was the only reason he had the movie film.
Oh, was to take pictures for his book?
Some still pictures. He hoped it would work for the book. Pictures that I didn't have any slides for. Well, it didn't work. He used one or two in the book, but it was either real fuzzy. And one or two right in the front, near the inside the front cover or something. Near the front of the book. He reproduced them real small and they're still blurry.
Well, at least we solved the problem with it being wound backwards.
Yeah, it seems to be. The numbers are correct.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
not reversed, are they?
Nope.
So he must have got it okay.
Did you do this?
Yeah, it was just handwritten by pen and ink, using yellow ink.
Against
Those are
black
on
chalk?
blue, on blue cards. You never guessed that was blue. That really lost its color. In the original film, that background is just as blue as can be.
How did you fade in and out?
I don't know. Is it fade? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it dissolved.
Oh, by moving the light away, I guess.
Oh.
We held a 40-watt bulb or something. Yeah, look how red that is. That original, it was just beautiful. The green of those trees, it's gorgeous.
I can correct that with my camera, I bet. I bet you I can do a white balance on a blue card and make that look just perfect on videotape.
All of these, the greens are just beautiful. This was the new improved Kodachrome film of 1939, and the greens were just exquisite.
I wonder why the copy turned out like this.
I don't know. I think this is fading. I think this looked better originally when I first got it some years ago.
Really?
I think it's changing color. Yeah.
You know, we got to get it on videotape now then.
I don't know. I've forgotten how this turned out. I thought it was better than this on Heron's videotape. I didn't think it looked this bad. Maybe.
Well, see, he shot it with a video camera, John, so he probably did a color correction also.
Could have. Yeah, it's possible.
It's very
better.
possible.
This is better than this. I'd forgotten it. I didn't realize that this was as bad. Unless it is changing color. It's possible. Because this is quite a few years old now, this copy. I don't remember when. It was, it must be 15 years. Quite a long time ago. It was done by some photo laboratory, some film laboratory in Pittsburgh. One of our members who lives outside of Pittsburgh had it done.
Mm-hmm.
He had this Super 8 copies made, because that's what most people wanted.
Super 8.
Super 8.
Right.
And then he had this done in negative, color negative of 16mm. And this print is made from the color negative.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was better than this.
Doesn't seem as sharp either, does it?
No, they'll probably lost some sharpness. That smoke from the brakes was real blue in the original. Real bluish gray. There you can hardly see it. Just sort of pink
asbestos,
smoke.
right? Was that
Everything
asbestos?
is pink. No, just cast iron is all they used on brake shoes.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, railroads never used any other substance. They would wear away in one trip.
Yeah.
Even those cast iron shoes would wear out quite quickly on lines that had any grades on them at all or made frequent stops. No, all brake shoes were cast iron. They were cast iron, so they would wear faster than the wheels, because it's cheaper to replace the brake shoes than to replace the wheels. So the wheels would be hardened steel, and the brake shoes were soft and iron.
John, did you shoot the film and then shoot the captions and then splice them in?
Yeah, I spliced them in. Some 2-3 years later, I guess, quite a long time later. Yeah, this film is terrible. Yeah, this is terrible. That's the best scene in the whole picture in the original film.
Yeah.
Beautiful. The freshly painted K4 and beautiful green trees in the background. And
yeah, maybe. Gee, I hope it's just because of the copy and not because the film is changing.
Yeah. I haven't seen this. I haven't projected this in quite a long time, and I don't remember that it was this bad. I know it wasn't as good as the original, but I thought the greens were sort of a darker color.
This
sort
is
of
all
a bluish.
But John, isn't that what happens when film starts going bad? It turns pink.
Yes, that's what all Kodachrome film of 1936 turned like this at first. The first few years it got like this, and then later in another 10, 15 years, it just faded right out, just a pale pink. You couldn't even see any detail in the scenes at all. I only had a 50-foot reel that I had shot, and no trains on it. It was just scenes around a yard and a flower garden and stuff like that. It was beautiful when it was first processed.
Well, what?
But
this is only 15 years ago, you said?
What?
This is only 15 years ago that you had this copy made?
Oh, somewhere around that, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least 15, I think.
What do you think they used?
I don't know. What would they use to make a negative?
Got me.
Some kind of negative film. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether the negative has lost its color, whether it's just this print is poor quality. I have that negative somewhere too. They gave it to me after they got done having copies made.
Yeah.
I have that put away somewhere. I don't know. I haven't seen it recently, but it's got to be in that closet where I thought these films would be.
Yeah, but these films weren't where you thought they were they?
But the negative, I haven't used it at all. It was only used in Pittsburg when they made it.
Yeah.
And these prints were made there, and I've never had any prints made from it. You know, this is a scene of this freshly painted K4 that was beautiful in the original film. Of course, it isn't too bad of the engine because it's only the greens that have turned pink here. The engine looks fairly good.
Yeah.
But that was newly painted.
I hope I can do something.
And I wish I could have gotten a colored slide of that.
What's that wire hanging there?
Oh, I was standing too close. It's a pole or something that had some kind of a wire that went up to it. I was a little too close to it. Pole or signal bridge, I forget what it is.
Look at that. Double header.
I wish I could have gotten scenes of some of those many triple headers that ran, but there weren't any in 39 when I was there. Yeah, 2 M1s. Freshly painted express reefer there. Notice every engine has the bells polished. Later years they were black. They were all polished brass at that time.
Now that's the shot right there that I first saw Pennsylvania Glory at Bob Shoe's place at Tayville Hobbies. When and they were watching the tape for the very first time, and when that scene came on, they went nuts.
Oh yeah, people do when they see that.
They went crazy when that's a T. Is that a T1?
Two T1s, a double header of T1s. Yeah, these are.
You're right, John. Because I remember that shot, and on the videotape, it does not look that bad.
No,
not at all.
Oh, it doesn't. The videotape that I've seen doesn't look good. There's a Q2, just making a test. It's coming down from a test run. There was a scene of it going up, but it isn't on this copy. There's a triple header, but they're not all K4s. There used to be a lot of trains with 3 engines on there.
Now that's just to go around the curve, right?
L1, M1, and T1 on a mail-in express train. That probably has about 30 cars. Yeah, just for the 11 miles from Altoona to Gallitzin. Then the T1 would handle that train the rest of the way to Pittsburg.
Yeah, this is really faded.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, I hope it's because of the copy and not because of anything else. Oh, is that it? That's it.
I guess it is. Yeah.